Welcome to the California Democratic Renters Council. My name is Mari Perez-Ruiz. I am the chair of the Renters Council. And I would like to take a moment to have the officers that are present here to introduce themselves in the region that they represent. Can we start with Vinny?
Hi, I'm Vinny Bacon. I'm from Fremont, California, and I am the treasurer of this group. Thank you.
Alfred?
Hi, everyone. I'm Alfred. I live in Berkeley, and I'm the secretary.
Arturo?
Hello, I'm Arturo Rodriguez, and I represent the Central Region as vice chair for the California Democratic Renters Council. Good to see everybody.
Andrew?
Hello, everyone. Andrew Lewis, Southern California Vice Chair. Glad to be here.
Susie?
Susie Shannon, at-large member from Los Angeles. Thank you all for signing on.
And then I thought I saw Esther.
Hi, everybody. Esther Malkin out of Monterey. Happy to be here. Thanks for attending.
Igor? Igor, can you unmute? Can you introduce yourself and the region that you represent?
Madam Chair, I think he said he was on
77 because there were no other earlier
with
requests
lead.
for those.
Thank you. So Igor is he's in another call. Okay. Thank you. And then
I'm Ember Anacata,
Ember,
Officer
yes.
at Large from the City of Alameda. Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Ember. Appreciate that. And have I missed anyone else from the board?
Yeah, there was some stuff that got pulled off consent, so Igor's trying to make sure that he's over there helping ensure that we get our action plan for this weekend.
Okay, thank you for the update. Thank you. Do we have approval of the agenda? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I will second. This is
All
Vinny.
those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Alfred, can you count how many are in favor?
Yeah, it looks like we got a clear majority.
Okay, thank you. Minutes, can we have approval of the minutes? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a
Yeah.
second?
I'll second that. Thank you for the work you do on the minutes there, Alfred.
Thank you. So now we're going to the treasury report.
That would be me.
Yes.
I'm sorry, everybody. As I told some people, I do have COVID. Fortunately, you cannot catch it via Zoom, but I'm definitely not a happy camper right now, but I can give a treasurer's report. We have $1,852 in the bank. I have $76 in checks to put in, and we're going to be hit with a $12 service fee pretty soon, bringing our total to $1916. At our last meeting, we did approve a $1,000 expenditure for our event at the e-board, but that is to be compensated back. The Labor Council has said they will do that. So I'm going to basically just mention that and not include it in the total. And then we also put $200 towards a banner, a nice 6x3 banner that Arturo took care of. That was $200, or you said, well, 185, something like that. So I'm going to call it $1,716 cash that we can do something with. So thank you.
Thank you, Vinny. Appreciate the report. Secretary, the secretary's report. Alfred?
Thank you. So as some of you know, we submitted a number of legislation requests. Some of them will be up for discussion this Saturday. We'll have some more details about it later in this meeting.
Thank you, Alfred. Appreciate that. And then we're going to be going to the legislative report, and we have Housing Now Director Francisco Duanes. And I think he just
Hi, I'm
Francisco?
on, Mari.
Yes.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Hoping everybody's doing well. Thank you so much for taking time to, or for inviting me. I wanted to share my screen. Housing Now, my name is Francisco Dueñas. I'm based out of Los Angeles, but I am the executive director of the statewide Housing Justice Advocacy Coalition, which some of you all in your day jobs might participate in, and through the California Renters Council, you all definitely participate in. So thank you so much for all of your participation and support. I wanted to, I think it was earlier in the year that I walked you all through some of the bills we had endorsed as a coalition. And so I wanted to update folks around where some of those things stand. And there were some legislative priorities as well as some budget priorities. Is it possible for me to share my screen, Mari?
Yes, I'll make you a co-host.
Wonderful. Appreciate it. Let me know when.
Almost.
All right, you should be live.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So this is just a mid-year update. Let me know when you all see it. Okay. So in our advocacy agenda, we had some tenant protection bills that we supported. We had some bills that addressed homelessness. And then we also had some bills that were trying to gain more funding, preserve existing housing, and produce affordable housing. So I'm going to walk you all through the bills we've endorsed or where things stand with those. So on the tenant protections bills, I will say it's very disappointing that very few of the bills we endorsed are still alive. As you all can see from this slide, there is one bill that we endorsed that is still moving forward. It is a bill that would provide greater tenant protections for survivors of domestic violence in situations, for example, where they are not on the lease, but the aggressor is on the lease. So it addresses many of those issues. That bill has been made a top priority by the Women's Caucus, but it is very much opposed by the California Apartment Owners Association, as I'm sure nobody is surprised by. One budget request that did move forward and that it got included is a $30 million budget request for an eviction prevention and defense statewide program fund. We asked for 50 million for 1 year. We asked for a 3-year ask of 150, and we got 30 million for just 1 year. I heard that there was a lot of concern to make multi-year budget allocations this year. Even though obviously we have a huge surplus this year, there was a lot of concern from different parts of the administration or the legislative analyst office about future deficits. And so there was a lot of efforts to only do past 1 year budget allocations. We did get this budget allocation, but we still need a trailer bill to be able to say we don't just need more legal services, because the idea behind this prevention program is that we're also doing community education and outreach to tenants before an eviction is ever filed, so that they know what information is out there, they know their obligations, responsibilities, and rights. Similarly to landlords, that education piece we're hoping really prevents the evictions as well. On the latter half of that slide, you see the bills that have died, many of which are really important and worthwhile. So for example, we had a bill that would have prevented credit checks for tenants who are receiving housing subsidies. So like Section 8, A lot of times it's very hard for a tenant to find a place to rent with their Section 8 voucher. If now we've outlawed landlords from saying that they won't accept Section 8 vouchers, but many times the credit check is still a barrier to housing, given that if you are low income, maybe you've had trouble with your credit, and that's part of the reason why you now are can access these Section 8 vouchers. So we're trying to make it reduce that barrier, and obviously this is still a reform that's going to be needed. There was a bill that would have provided some started the process to be able to get to figuring out what should be the right framework for what does healthy heat look like or healthy cooling look like in homes, in rental housing. Currently, there is a requirement that there needs to be a certain level of warmth in a rental apartment, but not a certain level of cooling. And so there was a bill that would have started that process to figure out what that looked like. There was a bill that would have just closed some of the loopholes in the just cause eviction protections that we have at the state level. That bill died out. And then there was a bill to expand consumer protections for tenants that had rental debt, and that bill also died as well. All of these opposed by the Apartment Owners Association, and some of them also by the realtors. Here are some of we've got two bills that we endorsed that would have addressed homelessness. One that provides ticket relief for people experiencing homelessness. This bill is still moving forward. I think now it's in the Senate appropriations. You can see the last hearing was before the legislature went on recess. And there's also another bill in appropriations to provide pet care in homeless shelters. So these are the two bills that we endorsed. As a coalition, we haven't yet weighed in on the whole issue of the care courts, even though many of our coalition partners are very much leading against that, but we haven't brought that up for a vote as a coalition. On the side around production, preservation, or even funding, there is this important bill, AB 1837, that will need the support of all of us. This is basically a bill to close the loopholes that corporate real estate interests have found in order to be able to scoop up homes that are in foreclosure, distressed properties that are going through foreclosure. There was a bill 2 years ago or a year ago that the idea of that was to be able to preference community groups and local community members to be able to have first opportunities at getting those homes that are in foreclosure process, and to disfavor the corporate real estate, that can just buy, scores of homes up for auction all at one time. Well, there are some loopholes, as I'm sure you all are not surprised by. This bill, AB 1837, will close those loopholes, so that way the intent of the original bill, actually, we're able to implement it correctly, so that nonprofits, community land trusts are able to first get access to those distressed properties going through foreclosure. Another bill that is still moving forward, this one did get a lot of support, folks calling in, was the establishment of a housing solutions agency. This is a sort of a new agency at the regional level that would have the ability to be able to tax, which is something that was similarly set up in the Bay Area. So now this is being replicated in LA County. So those are still alive. There's a bill, AB 1206, to provide the same equitable taxation on properties that are owned by community land trust. Currently, the taxation system disfavors them. It doesn't treat them the way that you would imagine community land trust property should be treated. And then AB 1850 is a bill that will provide some guardrails. One of the things that you're seeing across the state is sometimes a city will partner up with another nonprofit or a coalition to purchase mixed income, multifamily housing, or upper middle income housing. But there's really no guidelines out there to ensure that when cities or counties do that, that they are actually, are going to get affordable housing. Like they're making it more affordable, like that it's a really good buy, as opposed to just utilizing the public's money. So AB 1850 would provide some guardrails around the affordability of those purchases. Here are bills that are a little bit in limbo. SB 490 is a bill that would provide some technical assistance for nonprofits that want to acquire properties. Like I mentioned earlier, acquiring foreclosure properties. There's other ways that nonprofits or community land trusts can acquire buildings to preserve their affordability. And this bill will create the technical assistance support so that there's administrative support for them. This SB 1176 is a bill that got further watered down very much. It originally started off as a Community Reinvestment Act at the state level. So really holding banks and other financial institutions accountable for giving back to the community. We have a federal bill like that, but we don't have something locally. And we've seen in the last 20 plus years, so many new banks and, internet banks and other types of financial institutions be established. A lot of those are not regulated or required by the federal statute to be able to give back to the community. So originally, this was supposed to be a sort of Community Reinvestment Act at the state level. And then it just became a study of, like, how can we start looking into studying that? What would that look like at the state level? We heard back from our coalition partners that bill didn't get enough funding in appropriations or in the budget in order to be able to do a study that they feel confident in. And so they sort of pulled back their support for that bill. So those are where we're at. Let me stop there and see if folks have any questions.
Larry Gross.
So let me just there I go. So thank you, Francisco. That was a very thorough report. I just wanted to add to one of the bills some information and talk about two bills that were not on the list. One bill is SB 513, which is by Hertzberg. That is still alive, would allow for homeless individuals to bring their pets into shelters, but it also would allow for domestic violence centers to accept pets of people. And what it does is it provides funding to provide the pets food and shelter, as well as veterinary services and spay and neuter services. So it's a really great bill. And the Los Angeles County Democratic Party Legislative Committee just recommended it last night for LACDP to support it. Two bills that weren't on the list that I think people should know about. One is AB 2050, which was our bill to restrict Ellis evictions. That unfortunately was our second try at it, and it did not get the votes. It came closer than it has been. But we attempted to introduce it on the Senate side, but the procedural effort was not endorsed by the Senate President Pro Temp. So we're looking, Alex Lee, who's the author of it, intends to reintroduce it again later this year. So that fight is not over with. He is totally committed to getting that bill through, and with the new members coming on, we think we have a better chance. A lot of them look supportive. The other bill I wanted to raise, which is a bill that should be opposed, is SB 1133. That just passed one committee. It would make it harder and put more obstacles in the way of including housing if the governor issues an emergency declaration. And so a lot of the emergency declarations due to wildfire and COVID has prevented rent increases to tenants and capped it at 10%. That just passed a committee, and some of our friends supported the bill, like Mia Banta, and there were a couple of others. I do want to say that Miguel Santiago was stayed off of the bill thanks to efforts by Susie and I to convince him. But I think that's a bill that we need to voice our opposition to, because it would undermine the protections that tenants have in case of a declaration of emergency.
Thank you, Larry. I'm going to put a pause, and I'm going to bring Susie. There's a time constraint here that we have somebody that has to leave by 6 o'clock, I believe. Susie? You're on mute.
Oh, okay. I actually had raised my hand because there was a bill missing, which was SB 1456, that I don't think Housing Now had taken up, which was to provide property tax exemptions for 100% affordable housing. This is Henry Stern's bill. It was killed by Jackie Irwin, Senator Jackie Irwin. So go back to her and blame her if you don't get more affordable housing in your area and have an increase in homelessness. Okay, actually, I thought Andrew was going to go.
Yes, let me bring Andrew. Yeah. Andrew, can you lead us with the Southern California region update, and then we'll.
Yeah, we're going to jump to Susie to do LA first, because I believe her speakers have out at 6, which is in 7 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much. So I'm Susie Shannon. I'm a member of the Democratic National Committee and also the policy director for Housing as a Human Right. I just want to let you know, a few weeks ago, I went on an East Coast tour, which included Washington, D.C., Boston, New York City. And then a few weeks before that, maybe a month before that, I went to Chicago. And what I have seen all over this country is the same thing that's happening, which is that tenants are being displaced. A lot of market rate housing is going up and not a lot of affordable housing. And we're seeing rents skyrocket. And this is happening pretty much everywhere. And a lot of states have a ban on rent control, similar to California with Costa-Hawkins. South Harlem, which is now being called Soha, although we don't want you to use that word, is being gentrified. So we're losing pretty much most of our areas where low-income people could live. And so we have a national coalition that we're working on to help lift the ban on rent control, which I think is great. But I'm just saying this because the same folks who come here to California and who try to get rid of our rent control housing, not preserve it, who try to stop rent control and put up $100 million campaign against it, are the same people who are going into these other states and doing that there. So we need to do everything we can to create affordable housing and to preserve it here. So I'm going to introduce now 2 of my friends, 2 people who I'm very proud to call friends. One is Mayor Sue Himmelrich who is the mayor of the city of Santa Monica, and who is also on legal counsel at Western Center on Law and Poverty, and Mike Soloff, who is on the board of Santa Monicans for Renters' Rights and the Santa Monica Democratic Club, and also was the chair of the housing committee for Santa Monica. And he also served as legal counsel for the Bruce's Beach case, which many of you probably know was an African-American family who owned property, and now it's actually being returned to them. And so Michael is kind of a hero in that vein as well, and has done amazing things to protect Section 8 tenants. So I'd like to introduce them because they're going to explain to you 2 ballot measures that are going to be up in November in the LA area.
Thanks, Susie. I think I'm going to start, and I'll stay a little over, but it's actually a Santa Monicans for Renters' Rights meeting, which I'm a co-chair of, that I have to go to after this. So I think this ties directly to the report we just saw in a couple of different ways. At the state level, every effort, it seems, to raise meaningful dollars for affordable housing and to help renters stay in their home keeps getting blocked. And I asked about ACA 14, which was going to be, a constitutional amendment to at least let us vote to say 5% of the general fund should go to this. But I'm taking it that probably has also died as well. But at the local level, we don't face those same constraints. And there was recently some important legal decisions that held that if the citizens put a ballot measure on for a special tax, that is a tax that will only be used for a specific purpose, that does not require a 2/3 vote, that Prop 13 does not apply to that, that the people did not intend to constrain their ability to put by their own initiative tax measures on the ballot. And so there was initially a discussion in the hope that the LA County agency that was mentioned would be formed and do a county-wide measure to impose a transfer tax to raise money for affordable housing and for tenant protections. That obviously didn't go forward because that bill had not passed, but both the city of LA and then we in the city of Santa Monica decided that we were going to go forward anyway and put transfer tax measures on the ballot. And both of us have gathered adequate signatures to put those on the ballot. There are a little bit of differences between the two. In LA, they're going to impose a 4% additional tax on the transfer or the sale of properties worth $5 to $10 million and a 5.5% tax on anything over 10 million. In Santa Monica, we're just simply doing everything over 8 million and we're adding a 5% tax. In LA, they hope this will raise somewhere between $800 and $900 million annually. And we hope in Santa Monica that we'll raise $50 million annually. The uses are going to be for creating affordable housing in a variety of different ways: acquisition rehab, new construction, some possibility of home ownership, and also tenant protections. In LA, it's going to be a lot for eviction defense and tenant education, which Francisco was talking about earlier, as well as to create a rent subsidy program for at-risk seniors to keep them in their homes. In Santa Monica, our needs and our politics are a little bit different. So we're also going to do a lot for rent subsidy, actually even more for rent subsidy, and emergency and ongoing, because when we lose our lower income tenants in Santa Monica, thanks to Costa-Hawkins, and the unfortunate fact that we're only 8 square miles next to the Pacific Ocean, there is no naturally occurring affordable housing at all in our city. It's only the existing rent control or affordable housing. And we'll also create affordable housing, and we also have a portion of the money that's going to go to our schools, because part of the whole theory, of course, of all of this as a very high resource community is we want to make available all the great resources in our city to all of our children, but particularly to lower income children and the like, who can get the benefit and hopefully break the cycles that bring people to need affordable housing, et cetera. So that's what's happening now. They'll undoubtedly be, we already in Santa Monica, because we're a small city and can't fly under the radar, already getting opposition from the real estate community and certain political activists. Even our canvassers out there were being harassed by people who would come and stand next to them and berate them and lie. And it's already in the papers in LA. It's sort of flown under the radar so far because of the, the mayoral race and the like. But we're very hopeful, based on the polling and otherwise, that these will really be an opportunity to create very significant resources for both affordable housing, renter protections, rent subsidy, and really make a major change in Southern California in what's available there. We shouldn't fool ourselves. There's no substitute for the state also stepping up and the county stepping up. No one level of government can address the massive problem we have here. I mean, in LA County, we have 500,000 households that are both low income and paying more than 50% of that for rent. Think about that. Being low income and paying more than 50% for rent, 500,000. So the need is massive, but unlike the disappointing report at the state level, there's a real chance for the voters here in Los Angeles and Santa Monica to make a big difference in this election, and we're hopeful that that will happen.
So Michael has covered the basics, and now I'm going to cover the politics. So about 3 weeks ago, when I was sick at home with COVID, not at a council meeting, one of my colleagues took a set of talking points, who purports to be a no growth for the residents guy, took a list of talking points from 2 developers' lawyers and tried to put a competing measure on our ballot, which would be a transfer tax. Instead of being 5% on $8 million, would on anything over $8 million would start at $8 million, right? So just to give you and would exempt first sales of properties, i.e. the developers get to take their big hit when they flip a $4 million property for 70 million, but the city gets none of it. They also have a nonprofit that they're involved in that has a large property they want to sell, and they don't want it to pay the tax. So there's a whole litany of terrible things that are in this that are result in our measure having a $61 million return to the city based on our formulation. Theirs would be 13.5 million. So that will give you some sense of the scale of what they're doing, because basically their clients don't want to pay the tax. They will spend $2 million against us. So we are really here to beg LACDP to support our measure. And we're working right now to avoid having the other measure put on the ballot. But if it is put on the ballot, whichever one gets a higher percentage of votes over 50 will be on the ballot. So we are here to ask you all to support us when in the endorsement process. And I think, and I guess we're speaking for the LA measure too, but we equally believe in that. And we have ourselves, Michael and I, used our own money to gather signatures for this, right? We got some volunteer signatures, but this is a big proposition because this is the only way we're ever going to have the kind of money we need to keep Santa Monica diverse and inclusive. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. We're just going to be Beverly Hills, and that's not what we want to be. Beverly Hills can have its programs, but we want to remain a city that actually has people who aren't rich in it. So there you go. So thank you. And I think we will take questions, Michael.
Yeah, and just I wanted to make clear that the alternative has $0 for affordable housing and $0 for rent subsidy. So in other words, they're trying to kill a measure that would actually do something for affordable housing and rent subsidy by, putting a competing one on there. So that's what we're fighting in our city.
And I see Sasha, thank you. Hi, Sasha. So, we already are providing money from the city for legal services. I mean, we already have done that. But that's really important in all of this, because we know that 95% of people who are facing eviction who don't have lawyers lose. I mean, you just can't win if you don't have a lawyer, period. So we understand this.
And our measure has the flexibility if the city council thinks we need more money for eviction defense to use some of this money for that as well.
This is great. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, thank you, everybody, and keep up the great work.
Great, thank you.
Now
I
I'll
just
go to
want
the
to say,
strategy meeting to try and get this passed to prevent that on Tuesday and to stop the 6% rent increase, which is the next thing we're working on. That's also coming up on Tuesday. So thank you,
Great.
everybody.
Thanks. Before I hand this back to Andrew, I just want to say, when I was in New York, the version of the Rent Stabilization Board in New York is called the Rent Guidelines Board. And I was there for the hearing for tenants who all spoke obviously against a rent increase. There were people who said they would have to make a decision between buying food or paying rent, which we hear a lot. There were people who just with a rent increase were going to end up without any housing. But there were also city council members who came and spoke and asked for the Rent Guidelines Board not to raise the rent. There were assembly members, there was a state senator, and they raised it 5%. For, I think they have about 2 million people who are in rent controlled apartments. It just applied to them. These are some of the poorest people in New York. And this is just an example of how the real estate industry and developers they have so much power. And this is really a David and Goliath story because we are up against just an enormous amount of money, a group of developers and real estate interests who are all working nationally against the interests of tenants. And even to the point where we have elected officials who have the majority, the majority of their constituents are tenants and not homeowners, and they are still not voting in the interest of tenants. So we have a lot of work to do. I love this board and all the work that they're doing. And I really appreciate everyone for signing on. And Andrew could take it from here.
Andrew, before you start, we have 2 people that had questions that I just want to acknowledge to see if they still have. Carolyn Fowler, you have your hand raised, and Francisco is still here, is in case you have a question for him.
Greetings, Carolyn Fowler, also DNC member, a member of this body. I just wanted to point out to Andrew, we in Los Angeles, he mentioned SB 1017, and he talked about the apartment association being against it. I think we owe, hi Igor, we owe the candidates running for Senate their positions on that, especially since one of the candidates, Cheryl Turner, is president of the Apartment Owners Association board. So publicly, what is her position? I think we need to, as an organization, be following up on that, because clearly she's on the wrong side if she's supporting her organization's position. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Jennifer Williams, you had a question?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Williams, just recently appointed to the LA County Citizens Economy and Efficiency Commission for District 2. It's my first time joining this meeting. I guess I had a question around, I'm not sure if the Santa Monica folks have left already, but I had a question.
I'm still here. Okay, great.
Thanks, Mayor Sue. I was wondering what the plans for racial equity were specifically around the resources that would be created from the tax. Like I know that the goal is to keep Santa Monica diverse, but how does that actually play out in terms of the mechanics behind the uses of the resources that this would generate?
Thanks for the question, Jennifer. And I think that the way that the resources will be allocated will come through our housing plan, which, so for instance, we just initiated a right to return. So people who were displaced by the freeways and by redevelopment projects in the 50s. So people displaced by the 10 freeway, and we did some redevelopment projects in downtown Santa Monica that displaced people are entitled to come back into our affordable housing and given the same priority as, so our top priority goes to people who live in Santa Monica or people who work 25 hours a week in Santa Monica. And these people are now placed on a similar footing with those people. We are, and thanks to Kevin McEwen, who I saw on this call, because he brought this forward and we did pass it and we have implemented it. So it's going forward. And I think we have been contacted already by more than 100 families. I think our original pilot was 100. But we have actually, I don't know if that answers your question, Jennifer.
Yeah, that's great. If you had any more to say, I'm happy to hear.
Well, I think we're looking, as of last meeting, we're looking at a deed that some people think may be similar to the Bruce's Beach deed, right? Or the Bruce's Beach eviction. Look, we're doing everything we can to keep Santa Monica as diverse as we can. And Santa Monica actually is not so segregated in our neighborhoods as it once was, but we're gaining Latinos, as everybody is, maybe not at the same rate. We still are very low, but Black families are having a terrible time hanging in. So it just is very expensive here and hard for people to stay. So I hear what you're saying, and we, like everyone else, have trouble getting money, and we were hit hard by the both the pandemic, because we're so tourist dependent, but we also have been hit in other ways that are unique to being the kind of beach town we are, because we don't have other sources of revenue.
Thank you.
Andrew, the Southern California Region report, can you continue with that?
Yeah, this is a monstrous report from SoCal. So we'll continue with two more speakers. Carolyn, your bill that you referenced, I don't think I brought it up. Maybe it was Francisco. I haven't mentioned any bills yet, but we can circle back on that. I agree, pressing the candidates that are running locally here in LA for state Senate, state assembly. We have supervisors races, city council, mayoral, you name it. There's elections happening this cycle, but I'm going to go to maybe I'll continue on that, but I'll go to Ryan Bell with the Pasadena Tenants Union to explain a lot of the work they've been doing, and this group has supported that effort in getting that on their November ballot. And then we'll go to Sasha for an LA tenant protections update after that.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Bell. As Andrew mentioned, I'm a member organizer with the Pasadena Tenants Union. And I'm also an ADEM and the president of the Pasadena Democrats. I always get it wrong. Democrats of Pasadena Foothills. I'm on the steering committee for the rent control campaign here in Pasadena. You've probably heard about that. I've spoken here in this meeting about it previously. Really great news is that we got about 15% more signatures than we needed to get on the ballot. Last time I was here speaking to this group about this topic, we were still in the signature gathering phase. In early May, we got confirmation from the county registrar's office that we had gathered 15,101 valid signatures out of the more than 20,000 that we gathered. So we're officially on the ballot in November, and we've started our campaign to win that race, that ballot measure in November. So we've already flyered about 30,000 homes in our base areas. Those are our renter dense areas, according to recent census data and voter files. And so we've already reached out with a really great flyer. We're starting on this weekend flyering our swing districts, which are high frequency voters that are homeowners. In Pasadena, we know just based on voting tendencies, voting propensity, that we need quite a few homeowners on our side. And the good news is that we really do have a lot of homeowners on our side. We haven't, the gentleman from Santa Monica was mentioning flying under the radar or not. So far, our only opposition has come from our other Democratic club in the county, in the city. They wrote a negative piece about us early on that was picked up by the Pasadena Star News, which the editorial board there is like Trumpists. So we've had only friendly fire so far. That was the Arroyo Democratic Club. John Furman, who's the head of ACT, which is not a Democratic club, but everything that they do is ACT/Arroyo Democrats. And he was just, he wrote a piece that was just mostly wrong. It wasn't even that he made interesting arguments. He was just mostly misinformed. He clearly hadn't read the measure or talked to any of us on the campaign. So we actually have a debate with them for tomorrow, actually. It's supposed to be like a friendly forum. Anyways, we are reaching out as we speak. We're doing phone banking starting this week to voters. We think we need about 30,000 yes votes in the next election. We think, we think that we can do that, definitely, but we're gonna need all the support that we can get, both in volunteers and as well as in finances. The Housing is a Human Right has been such a champion for us, helping us with some funding. Susie's been, thank you. I don't know if I thought I saw something about Susie left, but then I saw a comment. I hope she's back. But so if she's back or if she's not back, thank you, Susie, for all your help. And members of this board have also been tremendously supportive financially in other ways. Hey, glad you're here. So yeah, we have a website. It's called Pasadena for Rent Control. It's a little different than our previous website. The 4 is a number 4. So Pasadena number 4 rentcontrol.org. Yeah, things are going really well, but we do need to keep up the pace. We have about a $350,000, $370,000 budget if we do all the things that we think we should do in order to win.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan about that effort?
One quick thing is that in this effort, like the signature gathering, you literally have to be in Pasadena walking around. With this, there's a lot of phone and text banking. So if folks want to volunteer and help us out from wherever you live, whether it's, on the other side of the globe or whatever, we'd love that. So I'll put my email in the chat and folks can reach out. We would love your help. $5, $10 helps, a couple of shifts of phone banking helps, anything you can do. I'll put my info in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll keep it moving along in SoCal. SoCal has a huge report tonight. We're going to go to Oscar Gutierrez, who's a city council member in the city of Santa Barbara, who's working to bring rent control there, who has a heart out, I believe, as well. Oscar, are you here?
Yes, just a second. Let me just fix my camera. Y'all see me and hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I appreciate the invitation. Sorry, I was in another meeting that I had to attend to, actually having to do with the potential of implementing rent stabilization in the city of Santa Barbara. I was meeting with a local activist group that calls themselves Cause, and yeah, our situations we're a council of 7, and there's 3 of us that want to implement some sort of rent stabilization, 2% cap, and there's 4 of us, or that I was just say there's 3 that are for sure against it, and there's a 4th that's like wishy-washy. So we're trying to give her as much information and persuasion to align with us. So in the meantime, we came up with an ad hoc committee to try to come up with other options and ideas that we can address our housing crisis here in Santa Barbara, in the hopes that, you know, somewhere we can come in the middle, in a way, saying to her, we'll agree to these things as long as you agree to these things, one of them being rent stabilization. But we're still in the beginning phases of that. I'm still trying to meet with as many housing advocates as I can, rent stabilization advocates, and I'm trying to encourage her to reach out to everyone as well. And if you have any information or data that you could share with me that I can share with my colleagues, that'd be greatly appreciated, because we got, in our initial meeting where we were going to talk about it, we got met with the head economist for Santa Barbara County, who's the economics professor for the University of Santa Barbara. And he was very much against it and brought up all these studies from around the world and throughout history where it failed. And even when I brought up certain points about how you can't really compare Santa Barbara and Minneapolis, they're not really the same communities, and certain states don't have Costa-Hawkins implemented, and that could affect how many housing units could be affected by rent stabilization. He just kind of ignored it, didn't really comment on it too much. But my colleagues ate it up. They thought what he was saying was basically gospel, that rent stabilization wasn't going to work in Santa Barbara. So yeah, if I can get information to combat that, I would really appreciate it. The other big argument that, yeah, I heard some of you even comment on it earlier, is that, if we implement it, that property owners are just going to sell. These mom and pop property owners are going to sell to these corporations that don't care about the people, and they're just going to evict everybody and raise up the rent and gentrify the entire neighborhoods. That it's going to be counterproductive to what we want to do, is protect people of color. It's going to do the opposite. It's going to push them out and move in upper white families, I guess, is their excuse. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that they're trying to scare us with. But yeah, anything y'all have to help, I'd really appreciate it, and my other 2 colleagues would really appreciate it as well.
So Oscar, Francisco from Housing Now is here, and he represents a network of tenant organizations throughout the state. And there's regular meetings that happen weekly, monthly, that perhaps if you haven't, you may want to consider connecting. He has been instrumental in the campaigns that I had personally been leading and led in the Bay Area, in Alameda, city of Alameda, as well as, in the Central Valley. And also another organization is Tenants Together. They also helped us, develop the city ordinance, that when we went and presented our request, for rent control and just cause tenant protections. So there's some folks here that have some experience and have gone through it. And I really recommend that you connect with these two organizations if you haven't. And like I said, Francisco is here. So it will be, Francisco, can you put your contact information? You know, and
Sure thing.
yeah.
Oh, wow. I see a lot of phone numbers in here now. Let me try to write these down.
Yeah. But I really do recommend, you know, having a conversation with Francisco and others, you know, that are doing amazing work throughout California, pushing local and statewide tenant protections, and be involved with, you know, with their the coalitions that they put in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here, and thanks for the update. Good luck in Santa Barbara. I hope
Thanks.
that goes well.
Appreciate it.
We'll round out the SoCal report / update with Sasha Harden from Western Center, who's a tenants / housing lawyer there. We'll talk about the tenant protections updates and.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sasha Harnden, actually formerly of the Western Center. I'm now with the Inner City Law Center. I'm a policy advocate there. No worries. Andrew had asked me to join to talk about some of the new tenant protections that are going into place in the County of Los Angeles. This used to be a little easier to describe and to explain. This was a victory that we had back in late January when our county board, unlike the city of LA, for example, did not just put in place sort of, these are the tenant protections for the duration of the emergency. They passed some sort of temporary rules and have been renewing them every few months. And so in January, there was a vote to extend them again, and also to kind of look into a quote unquote phase out. The Keep LA Housed Coalition, which we're a part of, and several folks on this call are a part of, did some really great advocacy to basically turn that recommendation into a recommendation to strengthen and extend those protections. And essentially what came out of that vote was a really strong action by the Board of Supervisors to enact some, both to extend the existing tenant protections, but also to add to them in a couple different phases. This was a huge victory. We were super excited. And then the state extended its tenant protections, which included some preemption of these county protections, which is why we're here in July talking about a victory that we had back in January. But now we are past that preemption, and the county's eviction protections, including new non-payment protections, took effect on the 1st. So for the whole pandemic, we've had some good rules in LA County around prohibiting no-fault evictions with some exceptions. There are exceptions for owner move-ins, prohibitions on evicting folks for unauthorized occupants or pets, or for nuisances. Also prohibitions on evicting tenants for denying landlords entry, which was really important at sort of the height of the pandemic, as well as some important limitations on rent increases and tenant harassment. Because this preemption came in and sort of disrupted some of this, well, a lot of those protections have continued in place, but we were set to kind of put a new non-payment protection in place as of April 1st, and that's what was disrupted by the state law. So now it has taken effect on July 1st. And essentially, it is a very strong protection for tenants who are COVID impacted against non-payment evictions. The protections are limited to those who are at or below 80% of area median income. But if somebody who meets that requirement cannot make their rent because of COVID, they essentially will have an affirmative defense to any eviction based on that rent. They are required to deliver a declaration to their landlord within 7 days of rent being due, stating that they meet that income threshold and that they're COVID impacted and so they can't afford the rent. But so long as a tenant can do that and get that into the hands of their landlord, and they can self-certify in terms of both the COVID impact and the income eligibility, they are protected from eviction, full stop, based on that rent. Their landlord can still go to small claims starting, I believe, at the end of next year to collect rent, but would not be able to evict them for having missed that rent payment. And then, as I mentioned, there are some other eviction protections that predate this, that continue on the books. There are limitations on owner move-ins. There are limitations on evictions for unauthorized occupants and pets. And there's a slight sort of winding down of the denial of entry protection, but a tenant is still protected if their landlord is trying to enter their unit basically as a means of harassing them. So that is what is sort of on the books right now and what just kicked in. There's also a kind of future phase to all of this that the board basically called for a report back on. And the Keep LA Housed Coalition has launched a LA County Tenant Bill of Rights campaign, which is really about post-pandemic, the permanent protections that we should have in place across the county, regardless of what city people live in. We have 88 cities in the county. And I've certainly had the experience too many times of having to tell people, because they live in one city or in an incorporated area or somewhere else, that they have wildly different rights. And so we're trying to fix that by essentially strengthening some of the county's protections and then going on a campaign to get a set of tenant protections that we think is sort of, I wouldn't call it a wish list. I think it is proven policies that are in place in at least some jurisdictions in LA that have really made a difference for tenants. So the idea is we're going to go on a campaign to pass those in every single city in LA County. I guess I will leave it there and see if folks have questions. I know we're short on time.
Larry.
So I just wanted to thank you, Sasha. Good seeing you.
You too.
Let people know there's a difference between the County of Los Angeles protections and the City of Los Angeles protections. And the City of Los Angeles protections, which were some of the strongest in the state and probably the country, are still in effect. And there's no timeline at this point for it to expire, though City Council's debating that at this point. But just it lends to the confusion that tenants have in LA County, because there's so many different laws and no laws, and people just don't know where they live or what laws protect them. And so a lot of the tenant organizations in Los Angeles are doing the best to outreach to tenants to ensure that they know what their particular rights are.
Thank you. And I should have mentioned, that reminded me, right now, because of the emergency, LA County, the county itself, has the ability to impose all of these eviction protections within all of the unincorporated cities, which they've done. And so right now, tenants in a lot of cities are protected by virtue of the county's actions. But that's also why this Tenant Bill of Rights campaign is going to be really important, because as soon as the emergency goes away, so does that power. And we will sort of revert to a situation where a lot of tenants in a lot of smaller cities may not have any sort of specific tenant protections on the books.
All right. I think SoCal has taken up maybe enough time. Thank you, Sasha, for that very in-depth update and all the good work you do. And I enjoy our weekly calls with Keeping LA Housed. I'll pass it back to Marty.
Thank you, Andrew. So we're going to continue with the Northern California region report. Igor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So we have some exciting things going on as well. And again, just to put it in context, I think the state legislature, unfortunately, I mean, Francisco mentioned all the different bills that fell by the wayside, sometimes by 1 or 2 votes in policy committee, or became a pawn on the budget chopping block. And so we have some work to do. And that's why these local updates are so important, because they're laboratories of what is possible and what absolutely must be done. To kick off this report, I would like to pass the mic over to a longtime friend and champion of tenants' rights, Oakland Council Member Dan Kalb, who will talk about a ballot measure that he is crafting that is being considered by the council to be placed on the November ballot. Dan?
Thank you, Igor. Good to be here. Thanks for everybody, all the great work you're doing in your communities and statewide on protecting renters from displacement. As everybody here already knows, we have a lot of work to do in our state at the statewide level, no doubt, and in many communities up and down the state. Just an update in Oakland. Oakland, 10 years ago, we had what many people would have called a kind of medium or mediocre set of renter protections, whether it's rent stabilization or just cause. And over the past several years, we've increased those, we've strengthened those quite substantially. I'm sure we have more to do, but we've done a lot. And a tenant protection ordinance, stronger rent regulations to the extent that we could, and just cause has been strengthened a number of times. On this upcoming ballot, I'm putting a ballot measure. I've drafted a ballot measure with the assistance or input of some of our tenant advocacy organizations locally, and we hope to get on the ballot. I'm not sure if we have the 5 votes necessary on the city council to do that, but I think we do. It will do the following. We currently in Oakland have an exemption for new construction for just cause. Obviously, we know about Costa-Hawkins for rent control, but for just cause, we have an exemption that goes back to 1996. And I never really figured out why we have that, other than political reasons. So we're going to get rid of that, and just altogether get rid of the new construction exemption for our just cause ordinance. We're going to give new ADUs a little 10-year grace period, but other than that, all new units are going to, new buildings, new units are going to be under our just cause ordinance. We're also going to do something, and we borrowed this from San Francisco. Maybe other cities have this, I don't know. We're going to say that if you are an educator or a school site employee, or you or your family in your unit, you have children who are enrolled in school, you can't do a no-fault eviction during this regular school year. And so that's something that's in there. No one's really pushing back against that. How could you really? But we are getting pushback on the ADU thing. People want us to exempt all ADUs permanently, and we're getting pushback from our bigger developers when it comes to removing the new construction exemption. Anyway, that's what we're working on. I hope to get it on the ballot. I think we'll be able to get on the ballot. I'll know on Monday. I'll let you know Monday evening what happened. And if you know folks in Oakland, please make sure they vote the right way, and that they volunteer if there's any effort as we're ramping up a campaign to pass that ballot measure. And that's it for Oakland. Happy to be supportive of all the other good efforts throughout the state. And I share the concern that we all have about at the state legislative level not having the votes to do a lot of really important things. I think a lot of them still feel once 1482 passed, And that was a good thing that it passed. Once it passed, they checked the box and they don't think they have to do a whole lot more. So we have to change that dynamic in Sacramento, and hopefully we can collectively do that. Thank you, Igor.
Thank you so much, council member. And before we move to our next speaker, I see that Renters Council board member and former Fremont Vice Mayor Vinnie Bacon has a question or maybe a comment.
Yes, this is a comment. First of all, Dan, congrats. I've heard that was a 12-hour meeting you guys were in yesterday. One thing I wanted to point out that I found very distressing, many environmentalists like Igor and myself know that we have had run-ins with the building trades, over things like fracking and things like that. I was really surprised yesterday that they actually voiced opposition to Just Cause, claiming that it would hurt construction. Anyway, if you want to comment on that or not, I don't understand. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I found that very, very distressing. So,
sure, I'll answer it very quickly. I know time is short. Some of the bigger developers who sometimes hire union labor, and that's a good thing. We want them to hire union labor for construction. They talk to some of the trade unions and try to convince them that Just Cause, imposition of Just Cause on new construction is going to hinder big investors who are the ones who invest in major new projects, and therefore it's going to kind of curb new development in Oakland. I think that's totally exaggerated, and others feel the same way, but the trades are doing what they sometimes do, and I just respectfully disagree with them, and we're going to try to get it done.
Good answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your leadership, council member. I see that you have a question in the chat about the Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District. We could be here all night if we wanted to open up that can of worms, but feel free to respond in the chat. We're going to move on. I'd like to give some mic time to Sister Barisha Spriggs, fellow member of the Alameda County Central Committee, who has been working fearlessly and long-standingly to bring rent stabilization and other anti-displacement protections to unincorporated Alameda County. Barisha, if you're there, feel free to tell us more.
Hi, everyone. I'm a founding member of Even Renters United. We are a group trying to advocate for renters in the unincorporated area. And we've been working on getting an ordinance with the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, including a rental inspection program similar to what is already been implemented in Oakland. And also Just Cause. And there's a few more steps before it gets to the Board of Supervisors, and we're going to be having some campaign updates shortly, a briefing actually next week as to what the next steps are. But I'm super excited regarding this. We've been working on this for quite a while and done quite a bit of organizing and outreach. And it's very important for the unincorporated areas to have the same kind of protections as cities do. Igor has supported some of these efforts and given his expertise and some of these efforts, being someone who is quite savvy on these particular issues. And so I'm really proud of this. I'm looking forward to getting this done for us because the unincorporated areas, they're not invisible, and we need those laws to be implemented to protect us. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Barisha. I did not pay her to say nice things about me, but thank you so much. If you're on a Democratic Central Committee or in a Democratic club, One easy thing that you can do, hopefully easy given or based on, depending on where you're at and how folks feel about basic right to housing stuff, but like our central committee passed a resolution of support for rent stabilization and just cause for all parts of our county, including the unincorporated areas. And we've been sharing that resolution widely with decision makers when it comes time for them to vote on something. And of course, we endorse Democrats or could choose not to. We endorse some Democrats depending on how they vote with respect to the statements that we have made and the positions we've taken. Just a quick note, and then I'm going to turn it back. Wanted to give you a short Berkeley update. We have some exciting stuff that will hopefully be on the November ballot. One is a vacancy tax. We have thousands of units of housing that are being kept vacant for multiple generations, multiple decades in some cases, because post Prop 13, of course, it's so easy to just not upkeep those units and keep them vacant. And it can just be an investment property because someone may disagree with the philosophy of rent control and would rather do that. So one of the most efficient ways in Berkeley and probably other parts of California that we have found we can solve or at least put a dent in solving our housing unaffordability crisis is to appropriately tax those vacant units and then tax them less once they turn over and get some tenants in them. So that's one thing we're trying to put on the ballot. We are still working to get the Berkeley City Council to be one of the first jurisdictions in the state after San Francisco that has had this on the books for a while to pass a Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. Unfortunately, the statewide version got killed by, I think, 2 or 3 votes. I shall not mention names publicly, but if you want to ask who was behind that, I will tell you if you private chat me. And then finally, one thing that I'm particularly excited about, because I really had been hoping to go out, I was termed out of my rent board role in 2020. And I was hoping that we would get this done in 2020. And unfortunately, there were some creative efforts by the large landlord lobby in Berkeley to threatened to file a lawsuit, which stopped us from doing this. But we're moving forward. In 8 days at the next city council meeting, there will be an opportunity to close a loophole that unfortunately has galled us for decades, where certain, like Councilmember Cobb mentioned in Oakland, this is also the case in Berkeley, that for whatever reason, certain properties are completely exempt from just cause as well as rent control. Some of them may be accessory dwelling units. Others may be what's called golden duplexes. So an owner just happened to live there in 1979 and owned 50% plus one of the share of property. And so for as long as it's owner occupied, it's exempt from just cause. Well, we had a 80-something-year-old grandmother that lived in such a duplex a few years ago and was priced out. She had to move to Albany, away from the community that she left. Nothing wrong with Albany, although they have fewer renter protections in Berkeley. That's unacceptable, y'all. So I'm excited to close that loophole, working in concert with Oakland and with some of our other partners across the Bay. And thanks so much. Well, we do have representation. Elections matter. And so we have a 100% pro-tenant majority on the Berkeley Rent Board. And I believe that's the case in Santa Monica as well, the 2 elected rent boards. So shout out to all the rent board commissioners, present and former, that are on right now, elected or appointed. You are doing yeoman's and women's work to keep folks housed, keep communities rooted here. Thank you so much for your efforts, and let's keep fighting the good fight together. All power to the people. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So we're going to be going to the Central Valley region report, being mindful of time and that they have 2 speakers. I'm going to be asked if we're able to extend our meeting to give those 2 speakers the opportunity to speak, let's say by 10 minutes.
So moved.
Motion second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Discussion, okay. Okay, this motion passes. Let's go to the Central Region, Vice Chair Arturo Rodriguez.
Hello, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. As we know, Central Region is diverse. California is huge, and so we'll let our Central Coast member and representative go first, and then we have a couple of speakers from the Central Valley, a youth and an organizer who have been in the trenches, doing the work, actually base building what it looks like in the Central Valley, and so we'd love to hear about that. But first, Esther, if you may, take it away for now.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I just want to remind everybody that it's really important while we're talking about all this great work that everybody's doing in their communities and in the legislative arenas, that we are in an election year, and it is super important for us to get the renters to vote. The renter community has traditionally had very low turnout by comparison. We all should be making an active attempt with our central committees to register more renters to vote, get them to the polls, educate them on the candidates that we endorse, why they should be voting for certain candidates in our areas. Because if we don't get the votes that we need to get these endorsed candidates elected, everything that we're talking about basically is going to get erased at some point if we lose to candidates that are not on our side. So, we are working on this hashtag Renters Vote Initiative to educate and motivate to get all the renters out in many, many cities. Renters are the majority of the residents. In Monterey, we are 66% of the residents in our city. We have no representation on our city council, but we're the majority of the residents. So we have to make a concerted effort to make the renters aware that it is in their own best interest to turn out and support the candidates, not just by saying they're going to support them, but by making the effort to vote for them and spread the word to other renters to vote for the candidates that are going to help us make policy changes at all levels of our government. So anybody who's interested in ideas and suggestions on how to do that, I'm happy to work with you on it. It's really, really an important time for us right now with the election coming up. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Esther, for the work you do out there in Monterey County and Central Coast. As you know, Central Valley has some very populated areas and some very not so populated areas. And in between there, we try to find the best solution for the issues that we find. A lot of the time we're plagued with issues like the employer being the same person as the landlord, and that brings upon its own unique challenges on how to resolve that. But one thing we did learn is that the Central Valley hasn't had as much time as, let's say, Oakland or Los Angeles to learn to adapt to the unfortunate reality of having a large unhoused population. And more importantly, that central part of California is very impacted by Costa-Hawkins, because the majority of our homes are single-family dwellings. And so I'm happy to hear that our colleagues up north and south are taking steps in planning and permitting to, well, it doesn't mean that we're going to give up on the fight against Costa-Hawkins. I know that my community is going to fight strong. And that's why today I am proud to introduce somebody who, as a child, was taking pictures of Cesar Chavez, has grown up as a social justice warrior, and I'm pleased to be working alongside her. Yolanda Chacon Serna, if you may, you can take the floor and give us an update on the work that you guys are doing on the ground.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so in the Central Valley, as we all know, we are behind on the ball of having, but we have had an influx of houseless families and persons. And we, in our city of Delano, we do not have any housing protection or renter protection. We do not, but through our diligent work, we in our civic engagement, especially with the youth jumping on board and registering people and getting out there and getting out the vote, we changed the face of our council. We now have a majority, and our mayor and our majority council supports this. So this is where some of our local organizations, like our Central Valley Empowerment and CRPE, Dolores Huerta Foundation, Delano Guardians, and Loud for Tomorrow is one of our newer groups that's active and on the ground. And it's very important that we educate our community so that they do turn out the vote. And the focus really not only registering new voters, but going to the low propensity neighborhoods. Those are the people that really need us to walk them through the voting and support them. I was very successful this last round because if you look at the statistics, only 1% of 27 million for rental assistance has gone out to the tenants facing eviction in Tulare County. Combined with the homeless undercount, Tulare and Kings County Homeless Alliance reports that only 1,000 unhoused folks. That's not, that's not correct. Not only is the Central Valley left behind, we are the lowest in wage earners. Our wages are not so wonderful, and especially when the majority of whether we're farm workers or we're working at Walmart or Amazon, those are some of the employers that we have. Not everybody works at the prisons, which is like, wow, for our small communities. So, we really need to consider seniors who don't get a raise in their income every year, which now I'm one, so, and also Kara is another one of our partners who will be doing cards. We'll be writing cards to our community members. We'll be calling them, we'll be doing GOTV, but really focusing on educating. And I will tell you, many of these organizations, we are doing our meetings bilingually, so that we can reach out to the demographics that normally will not understand and will not even read the influx of stuff that's going to be sent in the mail. We need to be on the ground. And so this is where our focus is partnering up with our community partners and really engaging our youth at the Central Valley Empowerment Alliance. Our youth group, Lupi's Promise, has been canvassing and doing a lot of work and food distribution to support their community and to support the vaccines to help save people's lives. And so we're really working on looking at that next generation to not only educate, empower, agitate, mobilize, but register our new constituents for tomorrow, because we need to depend on them. And also the folks who don't vote because they say their vote don't matter. Well, I tell them, if you don't vote, it doesn't matter. So we need a voice and we need power. And the only way it's going to happen is if we link up and we get on the ground and we talk to our neighbors, friends, tias and comadres. So anyways, I welcome all of you and I'm proud to be here. And I want to say that our group, Loud for Tomorrow, our newest group in Delano, is Anayi Paniagua and Jose, you're going to introduce them, and Jose Orellano. And they're doing a marvelous job also with educating on many other issues that we have. So I think that this is our time. We can do it. And especially for the most disenfranchised, they want, another thing I want to say at our council, some of the anti-folks are saying that if people can't afford to live in Delano, they should move to Rich Grove or to another town. Why should anybody leave their community? You know, and I'm going to tell you, I saw today a house, a 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom for $600,000 in Delano. We're farm workers and seasonal workers. So this is more important than ever now because families are becoming houseless. And yes, this is our time. So I'm going to see you all in LA and we're ready to hit the ground running, and let's just support each other and get this work done. And let's walk the walk and not talk the talk because we don't got time to lose. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Yolanda, for sharing that with us. I don't know if Anaí is still on and wanted to just, I know we're short on time, but just briefly explain her experiences as a young leader in the Central Valley, if she may.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Anaí, pronoun she, her, and I'm an organizer with Law for Tomorrow, a youth org in Delano. Yeah, thank you so much, Yolanda, for the shout out. Truly glad to be in the space and learning about all the efforts that are already rolling in other places. You know, currently right now in our campaign, we're just expanding knowledge on solutions. In our communities, you know, there's not much of an infrastructure in organizing. People are constantly surviving, and there's only a few organizers, you know, out there in the trenches trying to get the word out and plug in the community into these solutions. So yeah, definitely glad to just be here, learning from everything that's already going on. Right now we're focusing on, we're expanding our knowledge with the community around housing solutions. I'm really glad that we have a progressive council and that they're ready to just vote. So right now, yeah, we're just prepping the community to make sure that they understand these changes very clearly, because a lot of the times, you know, there's a huge gap in like all the policies and where the community is actually at. So yeah, just glad to have a lot of folks to learn from and different ways to get this done.
Thank you so much, Anaí, for taking the time and joining us and taking your advocacy to this place that can be very interesting. But you're right, we're all learning from each other. And I know that we have been most successful when we've all managed to work together efficiently, effectively, and communication has been key. And so as long as we keep on showing up and as long as we keep doing, we'll continue to pioneer the steps that we need to take care of our housing crisis, housing needs, and the folks most vulnerable in our state. Thank you, Madam Chair. You may have the floor back.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Arturo Rodriguez. Wow, it's been a full hour and a half full of information. And it's wonderful to hear the different reports from all the different regions, the work that has happened and the work that still needs to happen. Before we end, I would like to invite you to our the California Democratic Renters Council will be hosting an event at the executive board meeting on Saturday. I believe it's from 2:30 till 5. Please come and join us. Tenants from the Central Valley will be coming from all over the state, and we'll be inviting elected folks to come in. It will be an opportunity to engage and advocate for tenant protections, in a one-on-one, without going through different systems to get through the legislator or the elective. Please follow us on our page, and there's information there. And also, can we, Alfred, can you share the link to the event? If folks want to register for that, that would be great. And then, sorry, Igor, you had a question before we end?
I had a comment. We should probably just update folks on legislation that we submitted for party consideration, both support or oppose. And yeah, I wanted, well, I don't know if Alfred is available right now to speak to this, or I can do it later. Oh, okay.
Alfred?
You need to handle it. So Just really quickly, and this is what AJ Thomas, CADEM Party Legislation Committee co-chair would have said if he was here. First of all, thanks to all of you for your continued support for when we put in submissions to ask the party to take positions in support or opposition of bills, it's generally in lockstep with Housing Now. We are, or Tenants Together. We are parts of these larger statewide coalitions. And so we work to represent them and bring the power of our Democratic renters on the ground all over the state to the fight, because #renters vote. So just wanted to let you know of the 12 bills that we have submitted for support or opposition. Most are on consent. If they are not, unfortunately, already dead, which you may have heard some are. There are a couple of bills that have been pulled from consent, which one or more members of the CDP legislation committee can do. And so that's where the real fight is going to be on Saturday evening. For those of you who are able to attend the e-board, someone can remind me, I think it's 6 p.m. when legislation committee is meeting, and you will be able to make public comment. And you can just say, I support the CADEM Renter Council recommendations. So the two bills that will be debated are a support request for AB 2011, the Affordable Housing and High Road Jobs Act of 2022 by my assembly member, Buffy Wicks. AB 2097, Residential, Commercial, or Other Development Types Parking Requirements by Assembly Member Laura Friedman, which we are supporting along with the Environmental Caucus. And also pulled off consent by default because it's by a Democratic legislator. So it does require 2/3 to side with to do an opposition. AB 2383, Rental Housing, Unlawful Housing Practices, Criminal History Information by Assembly Member Joan Sawyer. We're opposing it in solidarity with Just Cities and a number of other local organizations that have passed much stronger language in places like Berkeley and Oakland to give a fair chance to folks coming out of incarceration to be able to get housing and stay in housing. And we are opposing it because the language could and should be stronger here. We are inexplicably, we have a support recommendation that has been pulled off consent by someone on AB 2597, which says dwelling unit standards that tenants should have safe indoor air temperature by Assembly Member Bloom. And finally, we are opposing a bill that would undermine the opportunity for multifamily housing tenants to get solar and save on their energy bills. And that's SB 1385 by Cortese. And we are requesting an opposed position. So that's my report. Back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Oh, and thank you for putting in the chat the time. And so 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Saturday is at eBoard is the legislation committee. So Saturday, if someone can check if it's Saturday or Friday, it's one of those. But we'll see you there if you are coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Arturo Rodriguez, your hand is raised.
And I just wanted to add to the folks, this is actually a pretty exciting time for the Renters Council. This is where we've actually been able to switch positions on several issues. So we've kind of got it down to a T when we're doing an action on ledge committee or rules. Somebody will be there to greet you and kind of hopefully give direction to what we're advocating for, because things kind of change and swap throughout the process of the e-board is what we've learned. So yeah, don't be afraid to show up in the general vicinity and somebody will grab you if you haven't done that before. Just encouraging participation, really.
Thank you. And then a quick, Esther.
Hi, thank you. I just want to put on this call that we could use some fundraising help and donations for this council. We could do a lot more to help candidates and events and causes if we had more in our budget. So help us out, please. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So again, if you're going to be coming to the executive board meeting on this coming weekend, join us on Saturday from 2:30 to 5. We're going to be at Cholos, and the information is going to be shared in the chat. Arn is going to if you sign up to our website as well and our Facebook, and you'll have that information. There'll be some food and there'll be some beverages. So come and meet some of the folks that are coming from all over California, from rural communities to advocate for tenant protections. It'll be great for them to meet you. We are already behind schedule, but I see one hand raised. If you can make it quick.
Yeah, yeah, the Ledge Committee meeting is on Friday at 5:30. That's it.
That works better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It still has conflicts with caucuses starting at 6 and 6:30, but
yeah.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yes. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think I see everybody saying, okay.
See you Saturday.
See you Saturday.
Okay,
so
so
much.
we're gonna send out to, if you're on the email list, don't worry, we're gonna send you out all the deets on the hospitality situation. I noticed some of my friends were like, I thought it was all virtual this time, and I'm like, no, it's in person. It's the first time. I don't really know what's going on. So hey, I know that we're gonna be there Saturday and and Friday at Ledge.
Hope to see you there.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Guys, is none of it virtual at all?
This one is.
We can't even observe.
There's the observer option for the floor vote.
The meeting has been adjourned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so now we're free to talk.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk later.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.